On a stormy night, Cedric sought refuge in his small library, feeling lost after being rejected by the academy. The air was thick with an eerie silence as he stumbled upon a dusty manuscript that seemed to whisper forgotten secrets. His heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear as he began to decipher the ancient text, sensing its power to change his life. Yet, a battle raged within him. Should he share this knowledge with the academy that scorned him, or keep it hidden as a form of revenge? The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of Cedric's modest library. He had always found comfort among the dusty books and worn-out chairs, but tonight was different. The storm's fury mirrored the turmoil in his heart after the academy had rejected his latest work. "Why do they not see my potential?" he muttered to himself, feeling a mix of anger and despair. Cedric's fingers brushed against the spines of books as he sought solace, but the shadows seemed to dance around him, whispering secrets he could not grasp. As the thunder crashed, Cedric's eyes were drawn to a corner of the library where an old manuscript lay hidden beneath a thick layer of dust. Curiosity ignited within him. He approached it, his heart pounding as he lifted the heavy cover. The pages were yellowed and fragile, yet they seemed to pulse with life. "What secrets do you hold?" he whispered, his voice barely above the storm's roar. The atmosphere felt charged. A chill ran down his spine as he opened the manuscript, revealing intricate symbols and strange writings that seemed to beckon him closer. Each line felt alive, as if it whispered lost tales of power and forgotten truths. Cedric's breath quickened. Could this be the discovery that changes everything? He thought, excitement and fear swirling within him like the tempest outside. Yet, beneath the thrill of uncovering ancient knowledge, a storm raged within him. Should he share this with the academy, the very institution that had scorned him, or keep it for himself? The thought of revenge flickered through his mind like lightning. What if this knowledge could prove them wrong? He pondered, wrestling with the temptation to guard the manuscript as a shield against his past wounds. As Cedric meticulously studied the text, he felt the weight of its implications. The words spoke of power, of a time when the world was different, and of choices that could alter destinies. What if I could be the one to change everything? He mused, the thrill of possibility igniting a fire within him. But even as hope blossomed, doubt crept in. Would holding on to this knowledge make him a villain in his own story? His thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash of thunder, and he jumped, clutching the manuscript tighter. The library felt like a sanctuary, yet also a prison, containing both his dreams and his fears. Am I brave enough to face the truth? He asked himself, staring at the pages that seemed to shimmer with potential. In that moment, he heard a faint rustle behind him. "Cedric?" a soft voice called out. It was Alara, his closest friend, always appearing when he needed her most. She stepped into the dim light, her eyes searching his face. "What are you doing here in the storm? You should be safe at home." Cedric hesitated, glancing back at the manuscript. I found something," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "But I don't know if I should share it." Alara stepped closer, concern etched on her face. "What do you mean? If you found something important, it could help everyone. You can't keep it to yourself." His heart raced as he considered her words. But what if the academy only wants to use it for their own gain? They've already dismissed me. Why would they change now? Alara crossed her arms, her expression unwavering. Because they need to see your worth. You can't let their rejection hold you back. This could be your chance to show them. Cedric's mind raced. Her belief in him was a light in the dark, yet the shadows of doubt loomed large. But what if I fail? What if it all goes wrong? He whispered, his voice barely audible. Alara reached out, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You won't know unless you try. You have the power to change things, Cedric. Don't let fear stop you. As the storm raged outside, Cedric stood at a crossroads, the manuscript clutched in his hands. The weight of his decision pressed down on him, and for the first time, he felt the stirrings of hope mixed with fear. Would he take the leap into the unknown or retreat into the shadows of his past? The answers lay within the pages, and the choice was his alone to make. As Cedric sat in his dimly lit library, the storm outside raged on. The thunder roared, reminding him of his tumultuous past. His thoughts drifted back to a time when he was just a boy, full of dreams and hope. He could see Alara's bright smile, a beacon of light in his life that kept his spirits high, even when the academy dismissed him. "Do not let them bring you down, Cedric," she had said, her voice soft yet firm. "You are capable of great things. I believe in you." Alara was his closest friend, the one person who saw his potential when others turned away. They spent countless hours together, exploring the forests and fields surrounding their village. Cedric could almost hear her laughter as they climbed trees or built forts from branches and leaves. Those moments seemed distant now, overshadowed by the weight of disappointment he carried. But the memories were bittersweet. Cedric recalled the times he had felt small and insignificant, especially when he faced rejection from the academy. The sneering faces of the scholars still haunted him. They had laughed at his ideas, brushed aside his ambitions. "You are just a dreamer," they had said. "You will never amount to anything." Alara had always stood by him, her faith unwavering. "You must not listen to them, Cedric. Their words do not define you. You have a gift," she would insist, her eyes shining with conviction. But even her support could not erase the seed of doubt that had taken root in his heart. One rainy afternoon, while they sat under the old oak tree, Alara had asked him, "What do you want most in the world?" Cedric had paused, staring at the ground. "I want to be recognized for my work. I want the academy to see me as more than just a boy with dreams." Alara had taken his hand. "You will be, Cedric. Just keep believing in yourself." But now, as Cedric pored over the ancient manuscript, he could feel the tension growing between them. Alara had discovered his findings, and worry clouded her expression. "Cedric, are you sure about this?" she asked one evening, concern lacing her voice. "You have to be careful. The academy. They are not to be trusted." "They dismissed me, Alara," he replied, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "They laughed at my ideas. Now I have something that could change everything. Why should I protect them?" "But what if they use it for harm?" she pressed, her brow furrowing. "You know what they are capable of. We have to think this through." Cedric's heart raced at her words. He knew Alara was right. The academy had always sought power over knowledge. But the thought of sharing his discoveries filled him with trepidation. He wanted to prove himself, to show everyone that he was worthy. Yet, he could not shake the fear of putting Alara in danger. "Do you not see, Alara? This knowledge could elevate us. We could finally be recognized," he argued, his voice rising. "I can't just sit here and let them dictate my future." Alara stepped back, her expression torn. "And what about my future? What about the risks? If you expose them, you risk everything, including us." Cedric felt a pang in his chest. He did not want to hurt her, but the desire for recognition was so strong, it clouded his judgment. "I just want to be seen for who I truly am," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "Then let me help you," she said softly, her eyes searching his. "But we must be cautious. We cannot let pride guide our choices." As Cedric looked at her, he realized how deeply their lives were intertwined. His success could mean danger for her, and the thought gnawed at him. In that moment, he felt the weight of his choices bearing down on him. Would he choose the path of ambition or protect the one person who had always believed in him? The storm continued to rage outside, echoing the turmoil within him. Cedric stood at a crossroads, torn between his dreams and the safety of his dearest friend. Alara's unwavering support reminded him of the bond they shared, a bond he did not want to jeopardize. But the manuscript whispered promises of greatness, and he could not ignore its call. As Cedric delved deeper into the dusty manuscript, the dim light of his library flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. The words seemed to dance before his eyes, revealing dark prophecies about a war that threatened to engulf Eldoria. Each line he read felt like a weight pressing on his chest. The whispers of the ancient text spoke of betrayal, destruction, and a fate that seemed inevitable. "What if they are right?" Cedric murmured to himself, his voice barely breaking the suffocating silence. "What if the Academy is the only hope for this kingdom?" He shook his head, trying to dispel the doubts swirling in his mind. The thought of sharing the manuscript with the Academy ignited a flicker of hope within him. Perhaps this was his chance to prove himself, to show them that he was worthy of their respect. But as he read on, the true intentions of the Academy became clearer. They did not seek the knowledge to protect Eldoria. They wanted to use it for their own gain. Just then, Alara entered the library, her expression serious. "Cedric, I found something you need to see." She held a crumpled letter in her hand, her eyes wide with concern. "What is it?" Cedric asked, his heart racing. He feared what she might reveal. Alara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "It's from the Academy. They plan to exploit the prophecies to gain power. They don't care about the kingdom. They only want to control it." Cedric's stomach turned. They can't be serious. After everything we've been through, how can they betray us like this? Alara shook her head, her voice firm. "We have to act, Cedric. This knowledge can change everything. We cannot let them use it for their selfish purposes." "You don't understand," Cedric replied, frustration boiling within him. "If I expose them, I risk everything. They'll never accept me back. I'll be a pariah. Better a pariah than complicit in their plans," Alara insisted, her eyes blazing. "You have the power to stop this, Cedric. Don't you see?" Cedric looked away, torn between loyalty to his friend and the fear of rejection. What if they turn against us? What if they silence us? Alara stepped forward, her voice softening. "We can't let fear guide our choices. We have to fight for what's right, even if it means standing alone." He felt the weight of her words, and for a moment, the storm of emotions inside him calmed. But the conflict remained. Could he truly risk everything for a cause that might end in failure? "I need time to think," Cedric said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Alara's expression fell, but she nodded. "I understand. Just promise me you'll consider it. We cannot ignore the truth." As she left the library, Cedric felt a sense of emptiness wash over him. He returned to the manuscript, the words now blurring together as doubt crept in. He had always struggled with the desire for recognition, but this was different. The fate of Eldoria rested on his shoulders, and he felt the immense pressure of that responsibility. Hours passed as he wrestled with his thoughts. The more he read, the more he realized the truth. The Academy's corruption ran deeper than he had ever imagined. They were not just indifferent, they were dangerous. With a heavy heart, Cedric made a decision. He could not stand by while the Academy plotted against the kingdom. He had to act, not only for himself, but for everyone who believed in a better Eldoria. As the first light of dawn broke through the window, illuminating the pages of the manuscript, Cedric felt a surge of determination. He might not have the Academy's support, but he had knowledge, and with it, he could change the course of history. He stood up, ready to face whatever came next. Alara would understand his choice. Together, they would fight against the darkness that threatened to consume their home. Cedric took a deep breath, knowing that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but also filled with the hope of a brighter future. The day of the academy meeting arrived, and Cedric felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The sun shone brightly outside, but the light felt distant and cold as he walked toward the grand chamber. He had spent countless hours wrestling with the decision that lay before him. Should he reveal the truth he had uncovered in the manuscript, or should he protect Elara from the storm he could unleash? As he approached the heavy wooden doors of the academy, Cedric's heart raced. He could hear the murmurs of the influential members within, their voices rising and falling like the waves of a storm. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. But doubt lingered in his mind. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The members of the academy sat in their grand chairs, their eyes fixed on him as he entered. The chamber, usually a place of learning and wisdom, now felt like a courtroom. Cedric stood at the center, his palms sweaty, his throat dry. He caught a glimpse of Elara in the back, her expression a mix of fear and confidence. She nodded slightly, urging him on. With a deep breath, Cedric began. "Honored members of the Academy, I stand before you today not just as a scholar, but as a citizen of Eldoria. What I have to share is not just knowledge, it is a warning." His voice wavered at first, but he pushed through, fueled by the urgency of his message. "I have discovered prophecies in an ancient manuscript," he continued, his words gaining strength. "These prophecies reveal a dark future for our kingdom, a war that threatens to tear us apart. The very forces that you claim to protect are plotting to exploit this knowledge for their own gain." A murmur swept through the chamber. Cedric could see the disbelief on some faces, while others looked intrigued. He pressed on, the fear of failure replaced by a growing fire within him. "You must understand, the Academy is not the paragon of truth it pretends to be. I have proof of its corruption. The time for silence is over." Cedric's gaze locked onto a prominent member, a man known for his cunning and ambition. "You, Master Alaric, have long manipulated the truths of our history. You wish to use this knowledge to gain power, regardless of the consequences to our people." Gasps filled the room. Elara's eyes widened, and for a moment, Cedric feared he had gone too far. Master Alaric stood, his face a mask of fury. "How dare you accuse us of such treachery? You are but a rejected scholar, driven by jealousy and anger." Cedric's heart pounded in his chest, but he refused to back down. "No, I am driven by a desire to protect Eldoria. The truth cannot be silenced." The atmosphere grew thick with tension as Cedric continued. He spoke of the impending war, of the devastation it could bring, and of the responsibility that lay with each member of the Academy. He felt the weight of Elara's gaze behind him, her silent support giving him strength. As he concluded his speech, Cedric's voice broke slightly. "We must unite against this threat. We must choose to fight for the people, not for power." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. "I urge you to reconsider the path you have chosen and to fight for the truth." The silence that followed was deafening. Cedric could sense the shock and outrage swirling in the chamber. Some members exchanged uncertain glances, while others looked ready to denounce him. Elara stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. "Cedric speaks the truth. We cannot ignore the danger that looms over us." The chamber erupted into chaos. Members shouted, some in anger, others in agreement. Cedric stood at the center, feeling the whirlwind of emotions around him. He glanced at Elara, her eyes shining with admiration, but also fear. The battle for the Academy's heart had begun, and Cedric knew he had taken a step toward the unknown. As the arguments raged on, Cedric felt a mixture of pride and trepidation. He had uncovered the truth, but at what cost? Would the Academy embrace it, or would they turn against him, casting him out once again? The answers remained shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. The time for hiding was over. Cedric had chosen to stand for what was right, and he could only hope that others would join him in the fight for Eldoria's future. The sun rose slowly over Eldoria, casting a golden hue across the land. After Cedric's bold revelation, the air buzzed with whispers and murmurs. The streets, once filled with the usual sounds of daily life, now echoed with debates and discussions. People gathered in groups, their faces a mix of admiration for Cedric and concern about what lay ahead. Cedric stood in his modest library, the very place where his journey had begun. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Praise from some citizens warmed his heart, yet the backlash from others chilled him to the bone. He turned to Alara, who was sitting across from him, her gaze steady and reassuring. "Do you think I did the right thing?" Cedric asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Doubt crept into his mind like a shadow, and he feared the consequences of his actions. Alara leaned forward, her eyes bright with determination. "You had to speak the truth, Cedric. The Academy cannot be allowed to hide their corruption. You've shown them that one voice can make a difference." Cedric nodded slowly, but his heart remained heavy. "But at what cost, Alara? Those who praised me today might turn against me tomorrow. What if the Academy retaliates? What if they come after you?" Alara reached across the table, her fingers brushing against his. "I am with you, Cedric. No matter what happens, we will face it together. You opened the eyes of the people. There are those who will stand with us." As the days passed, the village buzzed with energy. Meetings were held in secret, and plans began to form. Cedric found himself at the center of a movement, one that aimed to unite the clans against the Academy's corruption. He felt a sense of purpose growing within him, but it was accompanied by fear of the unknown. One evening, as they walked through the dimly lit streets, Cedric and Alara encountered a group of villagers gathered around a flickering torch. The air was thick with tension as they discussed their future. "Cedric!" one of the villagers called out, his voice filled with passion. "We need a leader, someone to guide us against the Academy. Will you take up this mantle?" Cedric hesitated, glancing at Alara. She gave him a nod of encouragement, her eyes sparkling with belief. "You have the strength, Cedric. They need you." Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "I will help unite us. We cannot let fear hold us back. Together, we can challenge the Academy. We must gather our strength and show them we will not be silenced." The crowd erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by Cedric's words. Yet, amidst the excitement, Cedric felt a pang of anxiety. He was stepping into a role he had never imagined for himself. "But we must be careful," he added, raising a hand to quiet the crowd. "We need a plan. If we act too hastily, we risk everything." Alara stood beside him, her presence a calming force. "We will gather allies from each clan. We'll share our knowledge and strengthen our resolve. Cedric's voice has already started a spark. Now we must fan it into a flame." The villagers nodded in agreement, their determination palpable. As they discussed strategies, Cedric felt a renewed sense of hope. He was no longer just a rejected scholar. He was becoming a leader, driven by the desire to protect his home and his friends. Later that night, as Cedric lay in bed, he reflected on his journey. He thought about the stormy night that led him to the manuscript, the moments of doubt and fear, and now the incredible bond he shared with Alara. His heart swelled with a mix of pride and worry. "What if I fail?" he murmured to himself, staring at the ceiling. Alara's voice broke through his thoughts as she entered the room quietly. "You won't fail. You have come so far, Cedric. You have the support of the people and the strength of your convictions. Remember why you started this fight." She sat beside him, her presence grounding him. "You have transformed from a man seeking validation to one who fights for what is right. The journey may be difficult, but you are not alone." Cedric took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his choices settle into his heart. "Thank you, Alara. Your belief means everything to me. As they sat together, a sense of unity enveloped them. The road ahead was uncertain, but together they would face whatever challenges came their way, forging a new path for Eldoria and for themselves. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ancient stone walls of the academy. Cedric stood at the entrance, his heart pounding in his chest. Today was the day he would confront the leaders who had once scorned him. He felt a mix of fear and determination as he recalled the weight of his discoveries. The people of Eldoria depended on him now. Inside, the chamber buzzed with whispers. The influential members of the academy gathered, their faces a blend of curiosity and suspicion. Alara stood beside Cedric, her presence a comforting force. "You can do this, Cedric," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "The truth is on your side." Cedric took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Esteemed members of the academy," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I stand before you not only as a scholar, but as a citizen of Eldoria. We face a great threat, one that cannot be ignored." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on him. Cedric continued, "The knowledge I uncovered reveals dark plans that endanger our kingdom. The Academy has sought to exploit this power for its own gain." He paused, scanning the faces around him. Doubt flickered in some, while others wore expressions of anger. "Cedric, you dare accuse us?" A tall man with a sharp gaze interrupted. "You have no proof of such claims." Cedric felt a surge of confidence. "Proof? I have the manuscript. It speaks of prophecies and warnings. If you will not listen to me, then listen to the words of our ancestors." He looked directly at Alara, who nodded encouragingly. "Let us hear this ancient text then," another member urged, her voice dripping with skepticism. The tension in the room thickened as Cedric turned to Alara again. She stepped forward, a determined look on her face. "I will read it," she declared, her voice clear and strong. "The truth must be revealed." As she began to read, the words echoed throughout the chamber, filling the air with a sense of urgency. Cedric watched as the expressions of doubt began to shift to concern. With each line Alara read, Cedric could feel the weight of their past decisions pressing down on them. The people of Eldoria deserved to know the truth, no matter the cost. He glanced at the leaders, noting their shifting reactions, from disbelief to fear. As Alara finished, a profound silence enveloped the room. Finally, Cedric seized the moment. "This is not just my battle, it is a fight for our future. We must unite against those who seek to divide us. The war is coming, and only together can we protect Eldoria." The leaders exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement, while others scowled. Cedric's heart raced as he awaited their response. Then, one of the older members stood. "You speak of unity, Cedric, but how can we trust you? You have turned against the Academy." "It is not about trust," Cedric replied, his voice unwavering. "It is about the greater good. The Academy has lost its way. We must rise above personal agendas and focus on what truly matters." Alara stepped closer, her eyes shining with determination. "We can form alliances, gather the clans, and fight together. This is our chance to rewrite our destiny." The room buzzed with tension as the leaders whispered among themselves. Cedric felt the weight of their decisions pressing down on him. He had fought for this moment, and now he needed to rally them to act. Finally, a younger member stood, his voice filled with conviction. "I believe in what Cedric and Alara are saying. We must choose the right path, even if it means going against tradition." The murmurs grew louder, and Cedric sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Hope ignited within him. "Together, we can forge a new future for Eldoria. No more secrets, no more lies." As the leaders began to nod in agreement, Cedric felt a sense of relief wash over him. But he knew this was just the beginning. The battle ahead would test them all. both as individuals and as a united force. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Cedric turned to Alara. "Whatever happens next, I'm grateful for your support. I couldn't have done this without you." She smiled, a mixture of hope and uncertainty in her eyes. "We will face whatever comes together, Cedric. I believe in us." With that, they stepped out of the chamber, ready to face the challenges ahead. The path was uncertain, but Cedric felt a renewed sense of purpose. Love and friendship could flourish even in the darkest of times, and together, they would protect Eldoria. Share this story if you believe that unity and courage can conquer even the greatest of challenges. Leave a comment about a time when standing together made all the difference in your life, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales like this one.